It's a beautiful Thursday morning in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. The countdown is actively on to the 25th February general election in Nigeria, and I'm sure that there will be the governorship election in sometime early in March this year. Everyone is talking about it. Kano was agog yesterday for the APC presidential candidate, and there will be discussions aftermath as to whether or not these numbers will matter. The numbers at the rallies vis-a-vis the numbers that vote. That will be another active conversation. But indeed, we've talked about endorsements coming from past presidents. We've talked about endorsements from other individuals and whether or not that also would matter as to who votes for who in the February election in Nigeria. Our attention this morning, however, is turned to the umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission. Quite good news yesterday that INEC has now taken into its custody the last batch of the bimodal voter accreditation system. Some were saying that's the game changer for this election, particularly with the enactment of the Electoral Act 2022. A lot of expectations are rife as to how this will impact on the credibility of this particular poll. We'll also be talking about money politics. Recall that CBN has come up with its cash withdrawal policy. Some lawmakers are saying this policy should be extended to after June. And many people are insinuating that perhaps politicians do not want a limitation in the amount of cash they can get just before the election. Dr. Tunji Abayomi is my guest this morning. He's a lawyer, rights activist, and pro-chancellor, chairman, governing council for Adekunle Ajasin University, Akungba Akoko. Dr. Abayomi, good morning and happy New Year to you.
Nifemi, happy New Year.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
All right, so INEC is saying that it's training more than 1.4 million ad hoc staff in the effective use of its bimodal voter registration system for the forthcoming election. So right now we're looking at 176,846 BVAS machines for all the polling units across the country. How excited are you and how optimistic are you for this election, given the fact that BVAS is now backed by law and there's a level of technology that will be used during this election?
Well, I think the entire nation is excited. There's quite a number of agitation and effervescence about the election, but it is also profoundly important that INEC, both in principle and in practice, has continued to improve on election. If we go back to the past, and we follow the trend, we continue to see considerable improvement, which obviously is honorable for us as a nation. And that kind of improvement increases the believability of the people in the electoral process. So with the assurance from INEC, I think people, me, Tunji Abayomi, like any other Nigerian, is excited that we're going to have a free and fair election. But there's an additional input that I think is also significant. In this country, we look at the history of election neurosis or malfeasance. Usually, it's propelled by the government in power because they have all the apparatus of state authority and coercion to have their way. I think it's significant that the president of Nigeria insists that he's going to leave for this nation a free and fair election. He's going to establish that principle. And I think he's been working on that as part of his testament.
Indeed, there's been a track record. You know, when you talk about the Electoral Act, you also look at the body language of Mr. President in the staggered elections we've had in the past. Even in states where candidates have emerged outside his party, he's congratulated them. And he said time without number that he desires to leave a legacy of credible elections. But however, that also would impact on the power of incumbency. Because, you know, if you look at the track record of elections, incumbent parties look forward to winning elections because they have the president on their side. But that's probably not going to happen this time.
Well, I believe APC is going to win. Maybe I should disclose that I'm a member of APC And obviously, part of the leaders of my party in the nation. And I believe the party, the incumbent, has tried in a difficult environment. Buhari is not celebrated as he should. Part of the problem is because the nation went through quite a number of siege. I think the world actually went through siege. For us as a nation, it began with diminishing income. The government went into governance at low income level. And then it's very difficult to run a nation without money because how do you meet the expectation of the people? In addition to that, we were faced with quite a number of challenges, insecurity. I mean, people talk about security today, but we forget that Boko Haram was at Abuja. It blew up part of this police secretariat, National Police Secretariat, UN headquarters, and so on and so forth. We can go into quite a number of challenges that have been subsided. He has confronted them as much as possible. Then, on the side of the economy, well, he's also tried, in my view, looking at it objectively. And on the basis of that, I do not think it's just mere issue of incumbency. Well, yes, that may play some part in terms of persuasion, but I think some achievements have also been recorded. The
point I was actually making was the fact that, for instance, if you take a look at the 2007 election, when President Yar'Adua himself acknowledged that the electoral process that brought him into power was fraudulent. There was a perception where the incumbent president can lord his choice over the nation. That's the point I was making. That is not likely going to happen this time, given the fact that perhaps the best the incumbent president can do is campaign for its preferred candidate and allow the process to do its work.
Well, I think there are 3 areas have made that impossible. First, the law. The situation now is it's difficult to rig election. And where rigging takes place, manipulation, irregularities, it's easy to detect. That's number 1. Number 2, INEC itself has come of age. The days in which the overwhelming influence of the incumbent over INEC is receding with the support of the judiciary as well as the National Assembly. The third point, of course, is also the principle, the acceptance of the principle of election impartiality by the government in power. So, yes, I do agree with you. The overwhelming influence of the incumbent in the electoral process now is receding substantially. And our people have also gained a lot of consciousness. We've been talking about it all along, during our struggle for democracy and so on and so forth. I remember writing to President Obasanjo. Then I said my last letter to him, because I was writing to him every year, and I said his tenure will not be remembered for the water or the roads, but for laying appropriate framework for future government. How do you do this? By establishing an impartial, free and fair electoral process. How do you establish a free and fair electoral process? Your party must be ready to lose. And so that's, and I believe this is the principle that Buhari is establishing. Because if your party is ready to lose, although if we establish a free and fair election and your party loses, the nation has won and you'll be remembered, celebrated. But in the past, the problem we had was that the leaders were determined to win when they really have not succeeded in establishing winnability possibility.
You're talking about the do or die situation.
Yes, so that's just what has happened in the past.
And you think that has changed now? For instance, you're saying the APC is ready to accept loss in this forthcoming election?
Well, the point
Is there a body language like that the president is saying, whichever way this election goes, we will accept it?
Yes. The point is that APC really has no choice now. The nation is not willing to accept any malfeasance, irregularity, irregular election rigging by the incumbent. And this matter is not just about the nation. All over the local governments, the states, there is a greater consciousness supported by the structure of law now. I mean, you vote at the unit level, the votes go straight to a database. So, I mean, it's easy to find out who are the number of registered, what's the number of registered votes, registered voters, how many votes were cast, and so on and so forth, you know. So APC has no choice but to accept the outcome of election. And that is why I believe APC is campaigning very, very furiously to ensure it wins.
The work now is on the field.
It's on the field, you know what I mean? Even the so-called, the people keep saying the candidate of APC is not well, he's not this and that. But the man is digging the soil.
He was in Kano yesterday. Today
yes.
he's in Edo State.
Yes, he's in Edo State. On Friday, he's going to be in Ekiti. On Saturday, he's going to be in Ondo State. And he just came back from Imran. And so how well can a man be if he walks, he climbs, he jumps, he runs?
No. Nobody can doubt that. I mean, it is such an Herculean task even for a younger person.
Yes.
So the BVAS is seeking to achieve certain objectives, one of which is verification of the genuineness of the PVC. Yes. Now, a voter can use his or her fingerprint or facial authentication during accreditation. Yes. It also replaces the Z part, which was initially used for uploading polling unit results. So like you said earlier, the moment voting is concluded, the result is uploaded into, an online platform. Yes. It also has now eliminated the use of incident forms, which were used previously. If your card is not working, they just bring out the form, and then it also gave room for a lot of manipulation. Yes. But how much impact do you think this would have on voter apathy, which has been a thing in previous elections? We're yet to have 50% of registered voters participating in general election.
Well, I don't think it will not have it, because in the past, when we didn't have this kind of secure process, we had low voting. Votes will go up as we increase believability in governance in the country. And believability in government is tied to the interests of the people. For example, you will see that the agitation in this election is very substantial. Yeah. I don't think we have had as much interest among the younger people. I mean, we are constantly, confronting the challenge of, possibility. The next president, I'm on Facebook all the time, attacking either or receiving attack. That's what I mean. So I think we're going to have a lot more votes cast at this particular election.
We have about 9 million new voters in the 2023 election, and different political parties are laying claim on who has the popularity of these young voters. The BVAS will play its part, but how is your party scared of these young voters?
No, not at all.
Given the energy you are getting online, since you said you're on Facebook.
Well, the difference between our party is that we are quiet in terms of our strength. I think it was Wole Soyinka who said, a tiger does not proclaim its tigritude, it demonstrates it. So when the election comes, we will demonstrate our tigritude. We're not going to proclaim it now. But I can assure you, we have quite a number of unsung or even unspoken, a large constituency of young people who believe that this party has tried. Okay, because if you look at the situation of the world, the challenge of the time, or even the tide, so to say, you will agree with me that some efforts have been made substantially. We have not gone underground. Quite a number of nations are facing great difficulty. I just got a note from a friend in US who said a particular product they were buying for $3.60. They now buy one for $6.40. I mean,
we're talking about the implication of global inflation.
Yes, global inflation and
but
challenges.
What's your analysis of why you think young Nigerians are now more interested and willing to participate in the electoral process?
Well, there have been disappointment in the past, to be honest with you. We went into the struggle for democracy in order to bring about a better nation. When we were younger, why did we fight against the military? We want a better nation. We went to jail several times, in my case 3 times, one for 1 year. So you
were in jail for 1 year?
Yes, I was in jail. And the third one was in just prison. 11 months, really. And then there's another one and another one. I think when we are young, it was Plato who said the time for best effort is when we are young. Young people are very idealistic. They want things to be done and done as soon as possible. So the truth of the matter is that the past has really not honored this nation. A lot of it is not entirely the problem of the elders. Systematic disorder. Military came when we were advancing and took over everything and ruined everything. Extremely corrupt and highly irresponsible. They've abused their rights and then imposed on us a constitution according to his wish, contrary to the law and contrary to the norms of constitutionality and contrary to legitimacy. Because when they gave it themselves power, they gave themselves power to make a law, not power to make a constitution. And a constitution is not law. It's an agreement by the people on how they want to be governed. They messed up everything, apart from destroying the economy immensely. So we had that problem. Then politicians, when they came back, instead of raising the consciousness and the challenge of leadership, they were more preoccupied with the badge of office instead of the burden of office. Now, the young people who grew up with these experiences, obviously, they were traumatized and they want change. And that is really what is happening. It's happening all over the world, as a matter of fact.
I like your honest analysis of what has happened in the past.
Yes.
The concern, however, is that many of these young people see the PDP and the APC as a representation of that corrupt establishment that has been responsible for the past that has brought us to where we are. As some will say, that makes it more difficult for your party in this forthcoming election.
No, the point is that this election is going to focus more on persons instead of parties. The truth of the matter is that PDP and APC, or APC and APC, they represent the past. And unfortunately, the young people didn't see the past to have, given them enough of happiness. Otherwise, why is all our people running out of the country? You get what I mean? However, what I know, and I can tell the people of Nigeria, is that the candidate of APC is very determined to give to this nation a last testament, to turn this nation to a great nation. He is extremely determined to do that, if God gives him life. That I can assure all the young people. I mean, there was a discussion in my own home between me and my son, who is 34 years old.
Okay.
He went to Buckingham, he's a lawyer, like any young people, and he was doubtful initially. So one day I took him to see the candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I said, well, I'm not going to consider. You have this dialogue with him in his house in Abuja. After the dialogue, he said, Dad, the man is very sound. The man is very
This was
sound.
when?
It was discussed. This was before primary. This was before primary. And then they were discussing the wealth of the nation. That was the topic. And he was electrified when Tinubu was discussing these issues. Since that time, he's become is it bolafied?
Perhaps you should tell your candidate to engage the media more if you could have convinced your son, because not everyone like your son has that privilege of having that conversation with him. Well, because many of the things they have against him online now is the fact that he's not honoring as many media interviews, debates, and the rest. Well,
I think he's trying. The point is that it's difficult to go into the den of a lion when, for example, a media house has already made up his mind. He's always talking about everything negative about a candidate. I don't want to go to social media. For what use? What are you going to achieve? At the end of it all, the media isn't going to vote, But I believe that for national dialogue, more of that needs to be done. And as we move further into between now and February, more of that is going to be done. But the reality of the matter is that sometimes it's suspicious. Some of our media houses, I'm sorry to say, you understand what I mean? If you only rise, for the negative, you understand what I mean? So then where do we go from there?
I hope you didn't use that word intentionally.
The ethics of the profession expects objectivity.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I get that point very sincerely. I'd like us to talk about the role of money politics in all of this, because that has played a huge role, particularly in the staggered elections we've had prior to this time. In Ekiti, for instance, there were a lot of allegations as to how the big parties were throwing money around. Yes. And now with 133 million Nigerians, according to the latest report, living with multidimensional poverty, it makes it more difficult to convince the Nigerian electorate not to receive money to vote if they cannot afford, a quality style of living. So how do you think that will change in February?
Well, it's going to change a little bit, but not a whole lot. Remember, the Bible says, don't make me so poor that I will curse you, or so rich that I will forget you. I think it was President Obasanjo in the conference I held, African-European Conference on Human Rights, that said poverty kills faster than abuse of human rights. If we want to change money politics in this country, we must change the politics of poverty to politics of wealth. I mean,
that's a huge dilemma, Dr. Abayomi, because to change this poverty reality, as some are saying, we have to change the leadership. So it will take a political leadership to make Nigerians wealthy, or at least raise them from poverty. So it makes it difficult to trash that issue.
So you must first of all, you must look for a leader that can create wealth. I keep telling people, what really is the greatest challenge this nation faces? The greatest challenge Nigeria faces is to create wealth, is to be rich. That's the greatest challenge. And basically, that's the greatest challenge of any home, any period.
That's right.
So you, in order to reduce poverty, you've got to increase wealth. And so you have to look for a leader that can do that. I mean, if we look at this nation, the tragedy of this nation, you have lost so much. If we look at from independence, how many companies have left, just collapsed. I mean, I remember when I was young, we were going to GB Oliver and all these things in Lagos here, running there, to look at things. And there's so many companies like that are simply not. We were sending goods out of this country to many places. So you now have to remake Nigeria, rebirth Nigeria economically. Your central focus should be economy, because a whole lot of problems we have are consequences of poverty. in a large population of unfulfilled expectation, there will be quite a lot of neurosis that will disturb the nation. I mean, even in a home, poverty, it's terrible. It was in the Russian parliament that they said a hungry mouth does not understand the language of persuasion. So we must reduce poverty. That should be the central issue. When you are looking at the leader for the next time, the question you should ask yourself, who can raise wealth, make wealth, increase wealth, enhance wealth for the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching This Morning. Our attention is turned to BVAS, money politics, and other matters arising as regards the 2023 general election. Constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and chancellor, pro-chancellor, and chairman of the governing council, Adekunle Ajasin University, Akungba Akoko, Dr. Tunji Abayomi, is my guest this morning. Let's quickly take Ada's call. She's called in from Jos. Good morning, Ada.
Hello, this is me and Tunji Abayomi. It's Ada calling from Jos Plateau State. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
BVAS is a game changer. At least, just like your guest said there, it will be very difficult to rig election this time around. And let me tell you something. If not for this new electoral something that Buhari signed, which I commend him for, I, for one, I've been voting all along. But after that 2019 election, I swore I won't vote again. And so many people too. So I thank God he did that. So there'll be an improvement, The money politics, it will not work. So people will chop people's money, but there's no way to show evidence that you voted for them, because the INEC has now provided another. They are repositioning the polling booths, those polling boxes in such a way that you cannot really show that you voted for somebody, and you're not allowed to take cameras there and all that. So that's a welcome development. Then for the candidates, all I want to say here is that it's not do or die. For me, I'm not losing sleep. And the three front runners, the much I know is that they can deliver. They can, fix this country, provided we practice that fiscal federalism, which we refer to as true federalism. The problem in Nigeria is that we have a faulty structure. So that's what is making it difficult for us to gain the difference of democracy. President Buhari, I wouldn't say he is a write-off. He didn't achieve anything, even though some of the opposition parties say he's F9 parallel. That's rubbish. F9 parallel, the president still scored marks. He did a lot in infrastructure. He has done a lot in infrastructure development. But because of the hunger in the land and the insecurity, that's what is overshadowing it, So that is it. But what I commend him for now is that he has made up his mind that he wants to leave a legacy. At least, if nothing else, let him leave a legacy of a free, fair, and credible election. And we should now vote based on the three C's: character, competence, and capacity. Somebody who will be able to cut down the cost of governance. That's the problem we have. Somebody who will end this medical tourism. You lead by example. Let them fix one hospital that is world-class, where the president can access medication and his family and every other person, So, and the others will follow. So that is the problem. Let us start from there. All the time, let's not give up in this country. Shall do well.
Thank you so much, Ada, for your contributions. Dr. Abayomi, we were talking about how poverty has become an instrument of manipulation in the hands of the political class. So you watch videos online where politicians give cash to the poor. And that now serves as a platform of endorsement, where Nigerians now say, oh, he's a good man because he has given me money. Whereas if the issue of poverty wasn't there, we would have moved up to, better indices to judge his capacity as a leader.
It's actually a tragic situation. It's not, I demonstrated it when I was running at one time for governor.
Which state?
Ondo State.
Ondo State, okay.
Yes. You have a situation, I was explaining to the people a situation where the politicians, some politicians, well, first of all, they're in government, embezzle the money, the wealth of the people, and then they now use it to harass the people, to entice the people. But because money is so essential to life, the people will go almost to the pit of hell for that money. I took a bundle at that time, $10,000, naira, and I flung it to them. And the people, they pushed me down. And they rushed to grab part of that money.
Why did you fling it?
I wanted to demonstrate the tragedy of money. And I'm essentially saying what you're saying. In other words, we have a situation where the wealth of the nation, the money is stolen. When it's stolen, the people become poorer. When the people become poorer, they become desperate for money. And the man who stole the money comes to them, oh, you need me because I have the money. As a matter of fact, they now tell the people that, look, don't vote for your son, who is actually more interested in developing you because he has no money. You know? So, but how do we resolve this problem? The first thing is that we must have a leader who understands the tragedy, the equation of disorder, so to say.
Let me hold you for a minute. George has called in from Ikeja. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Mr. Emin, and greetings to the elder statesman there.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Emin, there is this narrative that politicians have sold to the youth, that it is the elders that is the pain of their problems, that it is because they are elders, that's why the mismanagement is taking place. But the truth is that it's not true. Take, for example, President Buhari is 80 years now. He is known to be somebody that has never stolen a kobo from the federal court.
And he talks about it.
What I'm trying to make is that it is not age that determines your credibility or your input to governance. Unfortunately, the youth have been made to buy that wrong narrative. Yesterday, Ashwaju shut down Kano. I want you to play the video and tell me how many of those people in that crowd are above 50 years of age. Most of them are youths. Most of his mentees are youths. Those who are governors, vice presidents, commissioners, directors in MBAs today, they got to those positions when they were in their 30s, sometimes below 30, like the elder statesman said there about his son. That's how these people got there. But over time, the youth have been made to believe that it is the age of somebody that makes him not to do well. No, that is not true. For example, look at the crime rate in Nigeria. Go to the police records. How many people above 50 have been found to be criminals or arrested as robbers and kidnappers and all that? So if you were to even talk about age, it is among the youths, you will find those that are wrecking the country. Is Hush Puppy. How old is Hush Puppy? You know him. So that narrative must change.
So we will require, Mr. George, a more scientific and detailed data to be able to argue which of the age stratum of the society, performs more crime. But from where I'm seated, I would say that crime is with everybody, with the young and with the old. Would you agree? You will find criminals among the young, among the young as well as among the old. I think is off the line. But the point I'm trying to make, which I think you made earlier, was the fact that how do we deal with this money politics issue? And you have said that we need somebody who understands the tragedy.
Yes.
But then we're still in a fix. Yes. Because as we are right now, the process through which that individual will emerge is highly monetized. Yes. You have agreed earlier also that that's not going to change anytime soon. As a matter of fact, it is hard to run an election in Nigeria now without spending money.
Well, let me say
no matter how tight-fisted you think you are.
Nifemi, let me say this. It is difficult to run for election anywhere without money. Whether it's in America or Britain or South Africa or Mali, it is difficult to run for election without any money. The issue is not that you need plenty of money to run for election, because modern election is about the use of money.
But it's the vote-buying dimension that we're talking about. Exchanging money for votes.
The vote-buying dimension will disappear. You know, people buy vote. Is anybody forced to vote? Nobody is ever forced to vote. Even the so-called vote buying, people are not forced to vote for a particular. You can see change your mind. The point is that in most cases, vote buying is possible because you are willing to sell your vote for a candidate you believe in. You don't sell your candidate in most cases for candidates you don't believe in.
You think so?
Yes.
Not many people will agree with you, Dr. Abayomi. You give a poor Nigerian 10,000 naira. Somebody who could not afford, a 3 square meal. You don't think that would change his or her mind as to
let me give you a simple...
After all, what's the value of a vote for somebody who has not eaten or who has not taken breakfast?
A whole lot of people, there will be a minority, naturally, who will change. But what I'm telling you is that the majority that receive money, they receive money from candidates they believe in.
That they initially support.
The only thing is that they insist that, look, you are my candidate, but you must give me money for me to vote.
Yet another position subject to data. Let us take Maz's call from Okorafo. Good morning.
Good morning. That's Maz Okorafo from Arochukwu in Abia State. Good morning, Mr. Anife. Good morning, Dr. Bayo.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, sir. You see, the situation now in Nigeria is that when we talk about money politics, money. You see, the level of awareness in terms of voting and perception is another problem. And the level of education in terms of the voters and the perception of issues. You see, like what Mr. was just saying some minutes ago, the vote by about in terms of level of poverty. The way I see this, the way I have seen it historically and digitally, the vote buying this time around have a question mark. Because if you check right now, 3 square meal is very hard to get. And even if you get, is it a balanced diet or bread and mineral? No? Or is it correct? So the thing is this. Nigeria have to decide within themselves what they want. If they want to move based on the manifesto of a political party or the candidate, they go towards it. But if they want to based on sentiment and based on toxic money collection, the sky is their limit. Who is going to suffer? Is it the candidate suffering? It is the masses that will suffer it. So I'll call on Nigerians, collect your voters, GVC, sit down and then think within yourself. Forget about whether this man endorses this man is not that. To me, endorsement cannot move on with this present 2023. Why?
Thank you, Mazi Okorofa, for your contribution. So a lot of sentiments have determined how Nigerians have voted in the past. Call it regional sentiment, religious sentiment, money sentiment, like we've talked about. But would you say that the pre-2023 election, have we had a platform where that is viable enough, that has engaged the major candidates enough, such that majority of Nigerians can make decisions based on the interaction they have had with these candidates? Because usually you find out that many of these campaigns are shrouded with a lot of propaganda on the face of the newspaper. It's what the parties are saying. Unlike in more developed countries where even during primary election, you see the candidates stand to debate policies and issues, and they are questioned by the electorate. There are opinion polls. There are a lot of reactions coming from different stakeholders. Do you think that our politics have matured to the point where Nigerians really can tell who is the best out of this candidate and decide based on the things that gathered?
Determining the best among candidates is not just interaction during electioneering. I mean, there are quite a number of issues that preoccupy even in Western countries. Before, for example, you become a candidate for president in America, you must have gone through several schools, and through a lot of experiences.
You're talking about the track record.
Track record. People will judge you. What have you achieved? What have you done? What is your standing on issues? What contribution can you make? And so on and so forth. So they look at your life, the trajectory. So, but I do agree with you, however, that there is a need to increase interaction because there are times change.
Indeed, people change.
And people change. So what you stood for a few years ago may not be the issue that is preoccupying us today. I mean, just a simple thing like COVID-19 came, it was, the world was under siege.
By the way, the world is changing fast.
And the world is changing.
What worked some decades ago
it
might
just
not
doesn't work.
now.
You know, it doesn't work. In the last 20 years, information technology has revolutionized human thinking. We're not even sure now that a new creature will not be possible in a short time in human evolutionary progression. So I do agree that there's a need for interaction in order to be assured that the leader will be able to push us into, not only into this time, but into the future.
I'd like us to talk about how we can evolve that system.
Yes.
Maybe even constitutionally.
Yes.
To a point where we can't vote in Nigeria without having explored all the platforms that gives the electorate the opportunity to examine each candidate, to question them, to hear from them. But let me take this call from Warri. Hello, good morning. Good morning, Kelvin. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Hello?
I can hear you, Kelvin. Please go ahead.
Okay. Actually, let me appreciate the anchor person and the elder statesman there in the studio. Sincerely speaking, the issue of what INEC has said or INEC has done, I think is an eye-opener to every Nigerian. We cannot actually remove money politics slightly from the state as we speak now, as the elder spokesperson has already said there now, poverty in the nation due to the impoverishment made by our leaders who are there today. Those who are listening, they are listening. They have impoverished Nigeria due to their bogus allowances and other ways, they diverted money that ought to be used for consulting projects and other things for the personal issues, has made so many proportion of citizens to be impoverished. And so, actually, when you give them little money, it's like in form of inducement in order to make them vote a particular candidate who actually is not fit for a position. But by the grace of God, we are believing God that things have turned in the other way due to the electoral act that has been done now. And with what citizens have seen, it will not be as business as usual any longer for politicians. People are no longer going to vote for, even if people collect their money and eat their money and still vote for the person of their choice. That is what I'm seeing in this year's election. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for your contributions. So the office of the president is perhaps the most important job in Nigeria. You know, as a broadcast journalist, if you want to get a job, you send your video reel, which shows a demonstrated work history of what you've done in the past. But at some level during the interview, your person is required. There's a level 2 interview where you come and meet the board. Your stand will look at you. How do you look now? How do you speak now? Do you understand the current situation? You know, what is your skill with the current tools needed in the industry? How do we evolve our electoral system? You know, INEC is so much concerned about the logistics, the technology, which is great. But we must also evolve it to a point where we can examine these candidates. I mean, to the teeth. You want to become president for crying out loud.
The point is that it will continue. The agitation and the pressure will continue. Like everything that raises its head. I mean, it's not going to happen immediately, but as the pressure mounts and it increases, it will happen. It's just like when we were fighting for democracy against the military. Initially, it was, you know, a conquest over us, but eventually we triumphed because the pressure continued and is mounting. So I believe that the fourth estate, the media constituency, you know, journalists and so on and so forth, should continue to do the work for this nation, to put, you know, to challenge those who want to lead us and raise questions that are essential.
Do you think it's going to be a constitutional matter?
I don't
or it will evolve.
It's already a constitutional matter, because there's a provision for media, freedom of expression. In this country, rarely do you...
But the candidates are not bound by law, to the extent of standing for
but we must also... we must also respect their right to choose whether they want to win or fail. Yeah, that's just the point. For example, your right to... is part of the pressure of the time, of public pressure, that, look, we want to know about you. If, for example, you don't want people to know about you, well, you can decide that, But to insist that you must open yourself up may also be a violation of the right of personal, liberty of,
Our system must now work to the intent where it will become practically impossible for you not to open up, because you won't be able to win elections if you don't open up.
Yeah, and that is happening.
Yes.
Even look at what is going on in the social media. You know that whether you may decide not to open up, but you will be opened. People are opening you.
Citizen journalism. Okay, let's talk to Garba. Garba's called in from Benue. Good morning, Garba.
Good morning to you people there. Compliment of the season.
Wish you the same.
My take on this issue is that I salute INEC. I salute INEC for the wonderful job that they are doing. And I'm urging on Nigerians to desist on any distraction that will distract INEC chairman on what they are doing. Then lastly, issue of the endorsement. Nigerians have already made up their mind who they will vote for. If you like endorse anybody you want to endorse, they've already made up their mind. Your endorsement will not change anything. How many people have chosen candidate before? If it change anything, it will not change anything. The endorsement on the voter, electoral, they are the one that will determine who will be the president of Nigeria, not if individual, whoever he is in Nigeria. Have an idea about it.
I think we lost Dr. Garba. Thank you so much for your contribution. We're wrapping up now, Dr. Abayomi. Let's talk about how you think that, what is the role of the security agencies, at least to an extent?
I thought you were going to talk about the endorsement.
Yes. I don't know.
All your callers keep talking about.
We have spoken about it a lot this week. I'm almost getting tired of it.
Yeah, let's talk
but
about security.
That, if you want to talk about it, it's okay. But I know your position as regards the
your callers keep talking.
What role do you see security agencies play in this money politics of the thing? We haven't seen much prosecution in
there's not much
election.
Believe me, there's not much. The electoral process now, money will continue, will not determine winnability, but it will determine affection. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Yeah. I mean, it's important to appreciate that, because our tendency is to demonize money. There's nothing wrong with money. Money is essential for life. I mean, a nation is worthy when it has worthy people. The issue for this nation is not about it will make no sense to hate the wealthy in Nigeria. What the person we should hate is a man who became wealthy by taking our wealth. That's the issue. If, for example, you do your business and you do your business with government, as long as it is legitimate and you become wealthy, there's nothing wrong with it. So that's the issue that I think we need to focus on. We need wealthy people. Because money is essential. It's only the wealthy that knows how to make wealth.
Are you also saying we need wealthy people to become president as well?
How do you become president without becoming wealthy? It's almost impossible anywhere
Lawyer,
in the world.
rights activist, Chancellor and Chairman,
Thank you.
Governing Council for Adekunle Ajasin University, Dr. Tunji Abayomi. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Don't worry, there will still be more endorsements, and you will return to talk about them. That's our show this morning.
I'm interested in endorsing myself.
That's our show this morning. I'm Fabio Good to see you again tomorrow. God bless Nigeria.